as one attempts to figure out why the U.S. is willing to risk not only so many of its resources, but also the very dangerous and real prospect of escalation with a nuclear-armed power over who rules the Donbass, one would be well advised on this search for motive to follow General Butler's advice and follow the money. One person who knows that is Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. As Fox Business reported this morning, quote, JP Morgan, the nation's largest bank, has signed a memorandum of understanding with Ukraine's President Zelensky with the eye on attracting private capital for a new investment fund to rebuild Ukraine's infrastructure that has been destroyed in its war with Russia, Fox Business had learned. Jamie Dimon, Morgan's chief executive, has been particularly vocal about the consequences of the conflict, calling it, quote, an inflection point for the Western world for 100 years. Do we get our act together to help win this war, help the Ukrainians, help rebuild Ukraine? Note that while he's insisting that the war is of great historic importance, Jamie Dimon has ignored President Zelensky's pleas for young, vibrant men around the world who support the cause of Ukraine to go to Ukraine and help them fight the Russian army. He just wants to profit from it and watch as other people die. The article went on, quote, JP Morgan bankers were on the ground in Kiev and other cities, dodging bombs and witnessing firsthand how the war has crippled the country's economy. After a series of meetings with various ministers, they met directly with Zelensky on Friday night. As a gesture of goodwill on the eve of Sunday's Super Bowl, the bankers also presented Zelensky with a New England Patriots jersey with the number 91 to signify the year Ukraine gained independence from the old Soviet Union, these people say. Wall Street has long had its sights on helping rebuild Ukraine, eyeing future investment opportunities as the country moves beyond its war with Russia. BlackRock, the world's largest money manager, has signed a memorandum of understanding as well with Zelensky as an investment advisor. And Goldman Sachs is also said to be eyeing opportunities. JP Morgan envisions itself as a capital markets advisor to the country, helping it raise money either through a large investment fund or a bank, these people added. Now, as we know, it's not going to be the private sector that funds the reconstruction of Ukraine. It will be the United States government already sending money for its reconstruction, and the EU. And then these private vulture funds and corporations and banks will swoop in and profit off of it. It will just be yet another transfer of wealth from the American worker and taxpayer to these financial institutions. Now, just last month, President Zelensky recorded a personal video in which he explicitly cast himself as pitchman for his war, demanding, as always, a whole new set of weapons he wants the West to send. And in return, his appeal was directed to those whom he knows actually run Washington. Not our elected leaders who we go and vote for, but the financial institutions that fund both political parties and thus own the government. The nation's multinational bankers and financiers who have been profiting off the backs of working Americans for decades. Watch Zelensky showing that he understands the lessons taught by General Butler.
It is obvious that American business can become the locomotive that will once again push forward global economic growth. We have already managed to attract attention and have cooperation with such giants of the international financial and investment world as BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. Such American brands as Starlink or Westinghouse have already become part of our Ukrainian way. Your brilliant defense systems, such as HIMARS or Bradleys, are already uniting our history of freedom with your enterprises. We are waiting for Patriots. We are looking closely at Abrams. Thousands of such examples are possible, and everyone can become a big business by working with Ukraine in all sectors, from weapons and defense to construction, from communication to agriculture, from transport to IT, from banks to medicine. And I believe that freedom must always win.
Look at the carousel of profitable opportunities in Ukraine if only Ukraine wins the war. There's all kinds of different ways to profit. Come BlackRock and Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, all of our benevolent institutions, so renowned all over the world for fighting for democracy and everything that's noble. And he is barely hiding the fact that the reason that American institutions of power want this war to continue is because the profiteering motives are endless. His citizens are dying. He just had to increase the punishments for people fleeing the war. He's fighting not with a volunteer army, but a conscription army, using citizens who are unwilling to fight and die as cannon fodder against the Russian army, all while the U.S. feeds him and feeds the war seemingly endlessly. And I suppose if you wish to, you could dismiss this all as a coincidence. The fact that the nation's most powerful, the globe's most powerful financial institutions stand to gain so much. You can disregard the observations of General Butler in 1935 if you want, that war is a racket, and pretend that, oh no, in this case it's noble, and it's just a coincidence that so many of the richest institutions will get even richer off the backs of those fighting and dying. But that's how war works every time. Now, no conspiracy theory is needed to know what's happening. You just watch President Zelensky himself explain it in the clearest possible terms, or at least as clear as he can make it while he's reading English from a teleprompter. But the official site of the Ukrainian government and its cabinet of ministers has on it a proud statement that says that the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine signed a memorandum with the world's largest investment company, and they're boasting of that. And this is what it reads, quote, "The Ministry of Economy of Ukraine and BlackRock, the world's largest investment company, have signed a memorandum of understanding agreeing on a framework for consultative assistance in developing a special platform to attract private capital for the recovery and support of Ukraine's economy. The platform will focus on mobilizing investment in key sectors of Ukraine's economy while taking into account the reconstruction needs resulting from the full-scale Russian invasion. In particular, the agreement signed on November 10, 2022 in Washington, D.C. provides that BlackRock's Financial Markets Advisory will consult the Ministry of Economy on creation of a roadmap for the implementation of an investment platform, which will primarily attract private capital. This includes the structure of the platform, its mandate, and its governance." So again, you have private funds coming from the United States and the EU, as people are suffering in winter in the EU, unable to purchase energy, suffering in all kinds of ways for this war. And now you have the vultures, BlackRock, that buys up all kinds of real estate property, driving up the prices so high that ordinary Americans can no longer afford to even rent. Right in the middle of all of this, seeking to profiteer in completely amoral ways. That is what, at least in large part, this war is about. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.